Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Rush Roots. This is episode number 50, the big 50. So we're at
Ooh.
50 episodes of Rush Roots. Today we have Matthew Grill, is how you pronounce your last name, right?
Yep, just
Cool.
like the barbecue. That's the easiest way to say it.
All right. And
There you go.
yeah, we're gonna learn all about him. Matt actually is a buddy of my old boss from my job, and we kind of just met through mutual connection. And funny enough, sat next to each other at Cinema Strangiato, the last Cinema Strangiato. So this should be fun to learn all about your
Yeah,
Rush roots.
Yeah,
So Jim, go ahead, take it
cool.
away.
All right. Well, Matt, why don't you tell us how you heard about Rush? What got you into the band and what keeps you around?
sure. Well, let me start by saying I'm glad to be number 50. I can't believe I watched 49 of these already, but I guess that is the number I've already watched. So I'm happy to be on. Um, my story, I think, is a little interesting or a little different in that for most people, it seems like on these Rush roots, it was family that got them into it, parents or something like that, or hearing a song and just got taken away. But for me, it was actually two distinct times related to video when it comes to Rush, which is different. So, just a quick background. Growing up, my dad was big Elvis Costello guy, still is. I didn't
Cool.
get it, but that was his thing. But what he also liked growing up for me in the early to mid '90s was Bare Naked Ladies, and there were some catchy parts of songs. A song called Grade Nine that had some cool notes in it, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. I like that. Not knowing that it was actually an homage to Rush in part of that song. So I grew up knowing that I didn't like Elvis Costello as much as my dad, but I really liked Bare Naked Ladies, and that was it, the extent of my music until junior high and music class when they finally started giving you the history of music and background and giving you samples of,
hmm
of different artists, and at which time I started exploring more on my own. But at that time, this was late '90s, early 2000s, and so the thing to do was Napster, LimeWire, etc. You just downloaded individual songs,
Yep.
right? So I would just hear a song over here, hear a song over there, and a couple of those songs that came up were Tom Sawyer, The Spirit of Radio, the typical ones that you would hear. And I was like, oh, these are pretty good, nothing to it. But I had an uncle who was my big musical influence, who started helping me out, if you will, saying, "Oh, you're getting into these bands. Oh, this is glam metal. You should check this out. You like progressive?" And he got me involved with Queensryche and said, "You got to
Ah,
check this
cool.
out." And he handed me Operation Live Crime on VHS, and I still had a VHS
Okay.
player, so
Yeah,
popped that
cool.
in and was blown away. And as soon as I said that, he goes, "All right, I know the kind of music I got to get you into." And that flew through Dream Theater after that, and Savatage, and bands like that. And all of a sudden, I guess I'm a progressive rock, progressive metal guy. And next thing you know, 2003, I want to say 2003 rolls around, Christmas time. Maybe it was closer to 2004. He hands me a DVD. So now it's my first foray, and it's Russian Rio. And he goes, "This is the next one you got to check out." So I pop it in. I'm like, "Oh, Rush! I remember a couple years back hearing a couple of those songs. Yeah, yeah, they're pretty good."
Yeah.
And then YYZ comes on. And I am staring at the screen going, I'm pretty sure that guy's not singing any lyrics, but that crowd is singing lyrics. And why is that? And what is happening? And I just got mesmerized. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And that was the day I really became a Rush fan, so to speak. But just a little bit, right? So I like this stuff. When they would tour, I would go. I would see them on tour, just like him and I were going to every show under the sun. I mean, you name it. If they came around to my area, I was seeing the shows. From the AOR bands that came around to any
hmm
of the metal shows, we would just go. This is my time. So fast forward a little bit. So that's my first video, right? Russian Rio. Fast forward a little bit. I'm out of college now. I'm on my own, and I start seeing on VH1 ads for the premiere of this thing called Beyond the Lighted Stage, the story of Rush. And I'm like, hey, I like Rush. I've seen them in concert a couple times now. I guess I'll learn about the history. Watch that. I don't know what that was, 2010 or something like that, and whenever that premiered, and that was it. That was the video that as soon as I saw that, I saw who the guys were as people. I went out and immediately bought every single album on CD. Up to that point, I didn't have any of the albums. I bought them all.
Oh, well.
I bought every live album. I bought every DVD that had been released up to that point, including our 30 show, which was my first concert, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. and realized that, oh my God, all these songs, all these other albums that I didn't realize existed, because up until then, the only individual songs I had ever heard or downloaded were the most popular ones that would pop up on your
Right.
LimeWires or Napsters, etc. So,
Yeah.
I went from liking 4 or 5 songs to how many albums? How many songs do I have?
Yeah.
This is incredible. So between buying all the albums and then learning about Neil being such a great author, I bought all the books that he wrote. I read them in order, and then obviously I continued on for the years after as he was still publishing. And then any book that was related to Rush, all of Martin's books, etc., bought them all. I had to have them immediately, and so I really became obsessed, really from the end of 2010 right on through till now. So that was my 2 videos that really got me into Rush, and then I backed into the music, which I think is a little unique.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a little different to do it that way, but that is really cool. So why don't you tell us your first tour, like where it was and which tour it
Yeah,
was and when, if you remember the when.
I do. It was August 9th, 2004, R30 in Saratoga Springs, New York at Saratoga Performing Arts Center, or SPAC. That was the first show that I saw. And again, that was just as a casual fan that had only heard a couple of songs, but my uncle and I are going to rock shows, and that was the show that was
Yeah.
coming around. And, you know, we were just going, right? So we would show up and I'm like, yep, this is good stuff. And I saw them 6 times in total. I saw five times at SPAC. So every time they toured and came through
Oh
upstate New
wow.
York, which is where I'm located, I would see them. And one time I was able to make the work schedule work that I could travel and see them at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut on the
Ah,
Clockwork Angels tour. So I
nice.
saw them on every tour from R30 through Clockwork Angels. And yes, the one of, if not the biggest regret I may have in my life is not making it work for R40 to either
Yeah.
Boston or Madison Square Garden, which would have been the 2 closest to me.
That's what I was just about to ask because they didn't do Saratoga on
No,
R40. Yeah.
Yeah.
no. And
Yeah.
I was traveling for work. So Boston, it was like mid-June, I want to say they hit Boston on that tour. And I was traveling for work. I was way out of town, down south, for work, and so that one wasn't gonna happen unless I shifted my work schedule around. Which, in hindsight, knowing that would have been the last tour, if I had known that, I would have shifted the work schedule around.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Oh
then
yeah.
coming
Yeah.
back, it would have been land in Albany. How do I get to Madison Square Garden in a couple of hours? Not unheard of to do, but at the time it was like, you know what? I'm going to see them again. They're going to do something more. They got it. I mean, they're playing so great. There's
Yeah.
selling out. There's no way they don't do at a minimum a shortened tour and just hit some big cities, including those ones I could get to again. And the minute I knew that wasn't happening again, just devastated that I made that mistake.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think as
That's
that,
true.
I was gonna say, as that tour got to the near the end, we all kind of thought it was over. Yeah. So
my drum teacher at the time, who's also a massive Rush fan, he was at both the Boston and New York shows. And when he got back from the New York show, he's like, dude, I'm telling you, I think this is it. And that's when it started in my head, like, oh, did I screw this up? And
Yeah.
it was pretty quick after that I realized, yeah, you screwed it up.
Yeah.
So
The only good thing with those later shows is they documented all of those on DVD, all of the later tours that they did, so that was a good thing. But yeah, it's not the same as being there. So I understand.
yeah, and for me, I mean, it'll be 10 years, it'll be a decade since the last time I saw them in June, because the Clockwork Angels was summer of 2013 when
Yeah.
I saw them there. So to that, I first of all, I can't even believe that. It feels like,
it's
yeah,
crazy.
I can close my eyes and put
Yeah.
myself right there like it was
Yep.
yesterday, and to think that it was a decade is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Oh, man, wow, that's cool.
I
That's
feel the
still
same
cool.
way. It's
All you
crazy.
did. So,
Rush withdrawal is in full effect.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, why don't you tell us what your first favorite song and album were, and
Okay.
how that, if you had one, and how that compares to really now, if you have one, a favorite song and a favorite album now, just to kind of see how your preferences have evolved over time.
So I know you guys do the disclosure all the time. This is like picking the favorite kid. You can't do it. So I'll just add that in there, that this is where that's coming from as well.
Yeah.
But my favorite song has actually never changed. Subdivisions was one of those first 3, 4 songs that I downloaded. one of the first, if not the first, music video of theirs that I saw, and immediately that was the song. Still to this day is my favorite song. When I bought all the albums, because I like Subdivision so much, Signals was the first one I gravitated to. But I also really like Red Barchetta and Limelight, which are on Moving Pictures. So it was a pretty much a toss up for me between Signals and Moving Pictures from the beginning. Nowadays, I actually can't make it any less than 5. To me, Permanent Waves through Power Windows are the 5 most perfect albums ever created. I cannot skip a track on any of those. And if you ask me to pick between any one of those 5 or any of the tracks on any of those 5, including Countdown, which I love, I couldn't do it. All right. I love those albums. Probably the biggest thing that has shifted for me over the last handful of years, though, is I am now, as much as you guys might bash me for this, I know Ryan won't, but I am 80s Rush. To me is where it's at. You give me everything from Permanent Waves right on through Presto. I'm a happy camper. I mean that is it. And I'll take the later stuff before even the early stuff. I mean, as much as I do like Caress of Steel for what it is, Snakes and Arrows to me is better than Caress of Steel. So in my world, it's 80s Rush, later stuff more than the early stuff, but Permanent Waves through Power Windows is it.
Well, I'm not at all going to bash you for that. I mean, I think Permanent Waves through Power Windows there's such a variety going through that, from Permanent Waves to Moving Pictures to Signals to Grace Under Pressure. Like even just to there is a huge variety, of kind of sounds and styles, I think that they did. I think that's an awesome grouping of albums. And Power Windows too, for sure. Yeah.
Some of the best live stuff, I think, are, deep cuts, if you will, in some of those albums. I mean, Between the Wheels to me is one of the best, if not their best live track. I mean, when I went back and listened to that on R30, I was like, that is so heavy. I mean, that's just so unique and so well done live.
You should have heard all that on the Grace Under Pressure tour, man. You would have loved it.
I know. That's the downfall of being a young Rush fan.
Young Rush fan, yeah.
I have the advantage of being the old guy, so
yeah. So something new that I wanted to throw in here to these Rush roots,
go ahead, man.
with episode 50. I just thought of this today. I thought it'd be a good place to throw this in. Rapid fire, personal preference, rate on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you like Test for Echo.
9.
Cool.
Sweet.
Awesome. All right.
I would have. Can I rate it too?
Yeah, we didn't do it on ours, so obviously. Yeah.
I mean, Driven alone, I love that track. I mean that. What can I say?
Now I might change that for Rush Roots. We'll see, but I might just keep it as that because it's kind of a bashed album that we love on Rush
I think
fans.
I think Neil's playing on that album is just it's so smooth, and he's got such a big pocket on that album, and it's so heartfelt. His playing throughout the entire album. That's one of the reasons I love that album so much.
Yeah, I don't understand, why it gets bashed so much. Maybe because it's so different between what it was before and what came after, but
yeah,
could be. Yeah, cool.
I love it.
All right. Well, hey man, why don't you tell us where people could find you on social media if they want to get to know you as a Rush fan?
So pretty much the same way Ryan found me. You must have something Rush in your profile picture, because I do. So if you're looking for me, you'll find the guy with Neil as his banner and the Grace Under Pressure Algebra symbol on his profile picture. And if you're like Ryan and you're holding some Rush albums in your picture as well, send me a friend request at Matthew John on there. You can find me on Facebook. That's pretty much the only social media I do. So you're not going to be able to find me anywhere else, but I am fairly active on there, and certainly a member of all the Rush groups and you name it, collecting all the way through the fan groups. So
awesome.
Cool. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Well, Matt, thanks for doing this with us. And if anyone else wants to share the Rush roots, rushfans at rushfans.net, just shoot us an email and we will have you on. So thanks again, man. We'll talk to everyone soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.